Well, hey folks, today I'm going to talk to you about the odds of making a good shot. And what this is really going to talk about is all about the spin of the disc and the angle of the disc when you throw it and how it lands. And we're going to talk all about it right after the intro. Okay, so a lot of times I will play with folks and they'll step up to a hole and they'll just kind of get up there and they'll just throw a disc down the course, and I'll go, so what were you thinking on that? Why were you throwing that? And they're just kind of like, it seemed like the thing to do, throw it down the middle, etc. And the thing I'm finding out is that I'm guilty of this as well, of just stepping up and making a shot without thinking about the odds and the parameters that could help increase my success or cause me heartache. I've talked about it a little bit before. But really, the spin of the disc and how it needs to land should really influence what kind of shot you make. And I'm really talking about a lot of it about what kind of, are you going forehand or backhand? What kind of spin are you imparting in the disc, and how are you getting it to land? Now, I'm just going to try to keep this brief, but you know me, good luck. But once I get through with this, if you've got more questions, please leave them in the comments. Say, hey, can you elaborate on this? And hopefully we can walk through this and talk about it a little bit more. Okay. So let's look at this hole. So here we are. This is hole 9 at Inverness, and we've got two baskets. We've got a basket straight ahead on the slope like this, and then we have the yellow basket up at the top of the hill. Still got a little slope all the way up to right at the edge. It's almost like at the top of the mound, but anything short is on this hill right here. We're not going to necessarily talk about the blue one right now. We can talk about that later. But I prefer to throw and play to the yellow basket because it suits my throw. However, I know that my throw is actually kind of bucking the odds. And here's what's going on. My favorite shot is to take my beat birdie or my glyph, but really this one, because I know I can just throw it out and let it trail over. However, there's danger in that. And the danger is I'm throwing it backhand. We go, well, Pete, why is that a danger? Because we're up elevated and we're throwing up high. With this spin, if I hit any of these trees, it's going to ricochet and start carrying down. And it's got time, because of the drop down here and the slope of the terrain, to carry all the way down to the creek. So my miss, if I hit a tree with a backhand, the odds of it going down into the creek or getting in a bad spot for my second shot are a lot higher, just simply based on the spin. So what I need to be aware of is that if I stick with my comfortable throw, every once in a while, or however I'm throwing, I'm going to get that bad shot. And the question is, do I practice down there the rescue shot so I'm comfortable to get back up to the top? And the answer for me is yes. I've played plenty enough down there that I pretty much know how to get up to the basket. But I'm factoring that into what I'm going to throw. And so I still just prefer this because I'm a more backhand dominant. I know this. I can trust this disc. So I just step up, and hopefully I'm going to do this without. So if I hit a tree, I meant to do it. I'm such a good teacher. If I miss a tree, I meant to do it. I'm such a good teacher. I can't lose. So just that little flip up, I'm 10 feet from the basket. And I can replicate that pretty regularly. Let me show you one where I do hit the tree, if I can do it. Take my crappy birdie that I tried to do a bird design. I hate the drawing on this. I need to wipe it because I don't even want to throw this because I did such a bad job on this. So I don't mind if this thing hits a tree, catches fire, and goes into the creek. But so I'm going to try to throw this and hopefully hit a tree and see if it sends it down. Like I said, I'm going to miss them all and get up kind of close to the basket. Let's try that again. And there it goes. I don't know if I should be proud that I hit the tree or feel like, man, that's not what you should be doing. But anyway, that's a perfect example. Even though it was going to be, if I hadn't hit the tree, it was going to be short to the left, but it's not going to be down by the creek how it is now. So the smarter play on this is a forehand. But there's danger there too, because if I throw a forehand, the spin is going to work with me. If I hit one of these trees, the spin is going to want to carry it this way. Oh, sorry, spin this way. It's going to run ricochet and go to the right. That's what we want. Now, what I didn't talk about is up by the basket, it starts to flatten out. So if I get a good shot with my backhand up to the top, it's gonna settle nicely at the top of the basket. Whereas if I throw this forehand and I hit on too much of an angle, I need another disc, because the slope is like this, right? Okay, if I come in with more than kind of this kind of an angle, if I get higher like this, what's gonna happen? A lot of times it's gonna hit, stand up, roll, flip up, take off down the hill. There's a dividing line of what kind of angle the disc can come in and not pick up and roll. So you're actually wanting to try to land, most of the time they talk about landing with the slope. You want the disc to come in and land and match the slope so it doesn't have a chance to skip or whatever. It's just gonna sit and grab. Well, because I'm throwing forehands now into the hill, I have a lot more chance of it getting close to the basket, hitting the hill, and taking off and rolling down the hill. So neither one of these is the most ideal. And that's where knowing those odds helps determine which one feels better for you. And being okay with understanding sometimes you're just gonna get a bad roll or you're gonna get a bad kick, because that's kind of what this hole is set up for. But so the reason why I think the forehand is the better play for most people on this is because your miss is gonna be up by the basket usually, whereas an early tree kick with the backhand is gonna leave you way short over here. And let's face it, we always wanna make our mistakes closer to the basket so we have a better chance to scramble. So I really do believe on a situation like this that I wanna be able to throw a forehand and just let it fight up the hill, do that natural curve up the hill. But I don't wanna keep it too high so that it's spiking into the ground. I wanna keep it a little lower so that hopefully it's gonna catch the hill and just kind of skip up and scrub and stop versus hit, stand up and roll. Does that make sense? I hope it does. These are all the things when you're getting up, especially your home course, especially holes that you can play a lot, or even brand new courses, if you can start to do the math and go, boy, if I catch these trees on a backhand, it's gonna go this way. So I either need to throw it lower, because the higher you throw it, the more time it has to fade off, or I need to switch and have that spin help me stay over to the right, because you wanna be right rather than left on this. You always wanna be right. No, that was terrible, sorry. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to keep this fairly flat, let the entropy do the work. I don't want it to be diving too high and crashing over, because my roll percentage will go up. It was pretty good, and I hit a tree up there, and here it comes. It's going to go join my other one. So even though I threw, ooh, I am in shadow right there. So even though I threw almost a perfect shot that got up right by the basket, it's coming in hot. It hit that tree, and just the spin and the inertia of it hit it, stood it up, and brought it right back down here. I've got to realize that's a potential. So knowing the odds, at least I can go, yeah, I threw a good one. That's one of the odds that happens. It's kind of like if you're rolling dice. You know, sometimes you're going to get snake eyes, and it's just the way the dice go. So now what I would do on a hole like this is I would figure out my best chances for throwing a good shot. And I know I can throw that forehand fairly regularly, but I can rely on my backhand. And so even though the odds are against me for catching the tree, I'm gonna know my game, at least at this juncture right now. Now hopefully I'm gonna get better and better with my forehand, where I'm just gonna feel like I can dial that up anytime I want. That's how I feel about my backhand. But right now my forehand, you know, depending on what day it is how I feel about it. So even though I think your higher percentage is the forehand, I'm gonna go with the backhand here. But that's where you gotta come in. You gotta do the work, you gotta do the practice, you gotta figure out how your game plays and put that up against the odds. Because it doesn't matter what the spin or anything else, how it hits the ground is, if I can't get it up there. If I just hit these trees early every time, it doesn't really matter, because I'm just killing myself. So anyway, hope that makes sense, that you need to know what the odds are for each hole and then figure out what are the best odds for you in spite of those odds. The thing that you need to also think about is how to beat the odds by practicing the odds, knowing that your disc, if it hits the trees or whatever, this is a collection point down here for those misses, whether they hit the tree or they hit and roll down the hill. This area down here is where you need to put in some good practice time. That helped me tremendously on hole 8, because I kept getting past the basket down there to the right, and I needed to figure out what was the best shot for that area there. So I took a whole bag of discs and started working on it and figured out, okay, if I'm in this area, what shot am I gonna play? Same thing applies here. The glyph is right here. I would play up and down this section here and find what kind of shot works for you so that when you do get the kick or the roll, you're comfortable over here and you're not stressing out. You know, one of the things we do, we tend to practice best shots and best case scenario. So we'll practice from the tee pad over and over again. How often do we move over to the bad spots of the hole and work on those? Because let's face it, that's where the strokes can really add up. So I come here, here's where the glyph is. So I'm gonna grab the entropy, and from this area here, it's pretty wide open. I'm gonna aim at that dark tree, and hopefully it's just gonna fade off to the right to the basket. And I'm 10 feet from the basket here. However, that's pretty straightforward. Now what happens when the disc gets down here? And let's face it, I've been here plenty of times where now I'm having to not only navigate up the hill, but I've got to get through the trees. As a matter of fact, this is more like it. Isn't that lovely? You can't even really see the basket. It's up here behind the tree. So this would be a great place to start working on recovery shots. So do I do forehand, backhand, forehand, what disc, backhand, what disc? Can I make it up here? No, that wasn't a good shot. And that's what you need to do. You need to struggle in these areas that you're going to struggle in if they manage to land over here. Build up the knowledge and the experience of how to get out of these so that when it happens, especially if it's your home course, there's really no excuse for you not to get out and try those trouble spots. But you're going to feel much better. You're going to take away some of the chaos, be able to breathe, and lean on the experience of the past and go, oh, I'm here. I just throw a pig up to here, and it's going to be gravy, rather than just hoping that you figure it all out under the stress of, man, I got a bad roll away. Crap. That's kind of all I got for today. Just a quick, hopefully, spur your mind on to think about how you're playing certain holes. Is it a better backhand or is it a better forehand? Or are we not paying attention to the ground and how they're landing at the end? And then we can't understand why we're always getting rolls. You need to be a student of the course and a student of the hole so that you can beat the odds and hopefully beat your friends, because let's face it, that's what it's all about. Okay, on that wonderful man-centered finish up. I hope that makes sense. Please leave some comments, ask me some more questions. I think I want to do something about the angle landing on the ground and some of those angles and the science, if I can figure it out, of rollaways and that kind of stuff, the angles of that. I think y'all probably understand the spin. You know, spinning this way hits a tree, gonna bounce that way. Spinning this way hits a tree, it wants to go that way. I think you understand that, but I think I want to do something on angles. If that sounds like something you'd like to talk about, leave it in the comment, and I hope to see you out on the course.